In a world of rapid change and uncertainty, it's not often that we stop to consider if there might be a bigger plan or warning woven into the chaos around us. But today, we'll uncover chilling predictions from a French mystic who foresaw events that seem to mirror our own time, Marie-Julie Jahenny. Her vision spoke of a world descending into turmoil, where natural disasters, social upheaval, and even certain signs in the sky mark the beginning of an era that might sound all too familiar. Marie-Julie Jahenny may not be a household name, but her legacy is filled with prophetic warnings that feel eerily relevant. She predicted societal breakdown, moral decay, and a series of punishments that would spread from one country to the rest of the world. And what's even more astonishing is that many of these predictions seem to align with events we're witnessing right now. It's enough to give anyone chills, whether you're a skeptic or a believer. But what's behind these warnings? And is there more to come? Could Marie-Julie's most disturbing prophecy, the 3 days of darkness, be a reality we're still hurtling toward? Her predictions didn't stop with abstract ideas. They included details about specific events, some of which seem almost too close to our present day to ignore. So let's unravel her prophecies one by one and see what they might mean for the future of America, the world, and each of us. Marie-Julie Jahenny, born in 1850 in the small French village of La Fraude, is remembered as one of the most intriguing mystics in modern history. Her life took an extraordinary turn when, at the age of 23, she began experiencing mystical visions and later, physical signs of the stigmata, the wounds of Christ, on her body. Despite her humble beginnings, her fame spread quickly, attracting visitors, skeptics, and religious authorities from far and wide. Her life wasn't just marked by these signs. She claimed to receive direct revelations from the Virgin Mary and Jesus Christ, detailing a future full of both warnings and hopes. Unlike many other mystics, her prophecies went beyond general statements. Marie-Julie's visions contained specific details about disasters, moral decline, and the fate of nations, including precise descriptions of events that appear eerily similar to what we've experienced in recent decades. One of the most fascinating links in Marie-Julie's visions connects her directly to another major prophetic event, the apparitions at Fatima, Portugal. In 1917, 3 young children claimed to see visions of the Virgin Mary in Fatima, where she entrusted them with prophecies that warned of world wars, the spread of atheism, and trials for the Catholic Church. These secrets of Fatima were partly revealed to the public, while the third secret remained hidden by the Vatican until the year 2000. The secrecy only added to the mystery and fear surrounding what could come next. Marie-Julie's own prophecies seemed to foreshadow and even validate aspects of the Fatima revelations. She too saw a world falling into darkness, with punishments for humanity's sins beginning in France and extending outward. Her predictions echoed and amplified the Fatima prophecies, pointing to natural disasters, social upheaval, and, most ominously, the rise of a great moral and spiritual crisis. For many believers, these connections give credibility to her visions, suggesting a shared divine message woven through the words of these seers. But what exactly did Marie-Julie see in her visions? In the years leading up to World War II, she spoke of societal indifference and a world marked by moral decline, foreshadowing the coming storms in Europe and beyond. And some of her most specific predictions touch on subjects we find ourselves grappling with today. Marie-Julie Jahenny's prophecies foresaw a dark transformation in society that she called the era of sin. She predicted a time when moral decay would deepen, warning of widespread indifference, especially among parents toward their own children. While this statement might have sounded cryptic in her era, modern society may reveal its meaning all too clearly. Today, many believe her words are mirrored in societal shifts that prioritize personal freedom and convenience over the innocence and welfare of future generations. Marie-Julie warned that this indifference would start small, but spread like a slow poison. In her visions, she spoke about an increasing distance between people, with many losing their compassion and empathy. This, she said, would lead to families and communities falling apart, as individuals focused on their desires and ambitions instead of the common good. Perhaps one of the starkest reflections of this indifference is seen in the growing societal acceptance of practices like abortion and the redefinition of family values. To Marie-Julie, these developments indicated a loss of innocence and disregard for the sanctity of life. But her prophecies didn't just stop at social issues. Marie-Julie also predicted that this era of sin would manifest as a decline in spirituality, even within religious institutions. She foresaw that leaders and followers alike would begin to lose their faith and stray from their core beliefs. In her words, the time would come when even those who appear closest to God would betray the sacred values they once protected. This spiritual decline would weaken the foundation of societies, paving the way for greater calamities that, she warned, would soon follow. Marie-Julie's vision of society echoes through the experiences of recent decades. Issues like materialism, the erosion of family ties, and the polarization of values seem to align with her concept of this era of sin. Her prophecies pose a question for our time. Have we already entered this era? And if so, what does that mean for the world's future? Her predictions point to consequences far beyond the individual level. Marie-Julie said that, eventually, the cumulative weight of these sins would provoke divine intervention, leading to severe punishments meant to jolt humanity back onto the right path. And while this might sound harsh, her visions also contain a message of hope, that redemption is possible if people take heed and return to living with virtue and faith. Marie-Julie Jahenny's prophecies didn't just address the moral and spiritual decay of society. She also foretold a series of catastrophic natural disasters that would serve as divine warnings. According to her, these calamities would come in waves, beginning with unprecedented earthquakes, severe storms, and devastating plagues. But unlike the natural disasters of her time, she described an escalation, an almost unthinkable scale of destruction that would spread across continents, impacting millions of lives. One of Marie-Julie's most unsettling predictions involved earthquakes that would strike with such force they'd reshape the land itself, tearing cities apart and leaving lasting scars on the earth. Some of these earthquakes, she said, would be powerful enough to cause entire regions to sink or displace, sending communities into panic and despair. Modern scientific advancements have allowed us to track and understand these phenomena, but recent increases in earthquake activity and seismic events have many wondering if her words were more than symbolic. Marie-Julie also spoke of violent storms that would carry unprecedented destructive power, likening them to a divine fury sweeping over cities and countryside alike. Hurricanes, floods, and violent thunderstorms were described in her visions as punishments for humanity's spiritual neglect, each one targeting regions that had turned away from their religious and moral duties. In recent years, as extreme weather events and severe hurricanes have become alarmingly common, her warnings seem to take on new weight. From devastating typhoons to unexpected flooding in major cities, natural disasters are increasingly breaking records worldwide, potentially marking the start of the events she prophesied. In addition to storms and earthquakes, Marie-Julie warned of a global pandemic that would sweep across the world, spreading sickness and despair. In her visions, she saw people falling ill in vast numbers, with entire communities struggling to cope. This prediction of a plague-like disease eerily echoes the COVID-19 pandemic, a crisis that has altered life in nearly every corner of the globe. The toll of the pandemic on our health systems, economies, and mental well-being aligns disturbingly well with her prophecy of a time when humanity would suffer due to its negligence toward spiritual health. Marie-Julie's prophecies continued with visions of a rain of blood that would darken the skies for weeks and plagues that would affect crops, leading to widespread famine. These images sound like something from ancient apocalyptic texts, yet she insisted they would become real, undeniable signs of a world out of balance. And while we may think such scenarios are far-fetched, rising concerns over food security, drought, and crop failures are starting to appear in conversations among scientists and world leaders alike. As bleak as these predictions sound, Marie-Julie included a message of hope. Humanity has a choice. Her warnings, she explained, were not fixed destinies, but warnings. Opportunities for people to change their ways and avert the worst of these disasters. But if these warnings go unheeded, she cautioned, the world would indeed see an era of unrelenting hardship. With each calamity, a call to return to faith and compassion before it's too late. One of the more intriguing and controversial aspects of Marie-Julie Jahenny's prophecies revolves around her warnings about cultural spectacles, events that, in her view, could offend God and trigger divine judgment. Specifically, she mentioned moments when nations would openly display actions that disrespected or mocked sacred values, emphasizing that such transgressions would invite severe repercussions. In light of this, many have turned a skeptical but curious eye to modern public events, like the 2024 Paris Olympics. Marie-Julie foresaw a time when cultural displays, even ones intended for unity and peace, would contain symbols and actions that dishonor faith. To her, these moments were not trivial. Rather, they represented a widespread indifference to moral and religious truths. In particular, she claimed that France, historically significant as the eldest daughter of the Church and the first Catholic nation, would face repercussions for its defiance. This defiance, she explained, would eventually lead to punishments beginning in France and spreading globally, like a ripple effect of judgment. Many who saw the opening and closing ceremonies of the 2024 Paris Olympics couldn't help but wonder if some elements reflected what Marie-Julie had warned about. The ceremonies included provocative imagery, a nude queen, a depiction of the Last Supper featuring secular symbols, and even an image of a headless goddess. To some, these were creative choices. To others, they were deliberate, disrespectful actions in a country that had once defended the Christian faith. For those familiar with Marie-Julie's visions, it raised a question. Could these displays be the offenses she predicted would incur divine punishment? Her warnings around public events like this touch on a broader theme in her prophecies. She envisioned a world increasingly disconnected from its spiritual roots, using art and culture to normalize beliefs and behaviors contrary to religious teachings. According to Marie-Julie, these actions would eventually bring about consequences not just for individuals, but for entire societies. In her view, when a culture collectively disregards divine principles, it risks unleashing forces of chaos and calamity as a means of divine correction. But what would this correction look like? In her visions, Marie-Julie described a range of responses, from natural disasters to social unrest, as manifestations of a world spiraling away from its spiritual foundations. She noted that France, as a nation with deep religious history, would serve as a starting point for these judgments, and from there, the consequences would spread, as other nations followed suit in the same path of moral detachment. Marie-Julie's message was clear. If societies continue to celebrate values that stand in direct opposition to divine law, they would face consequences intended to jolt humanity back into alignment with sacred truths. For her, these warnings served as both a wake-up call and a reminder that, while human achievements can be impressive, they should never overshadow the need for humility, reverence, and faith. Among Marie-Julie Jahenny's prophecies, one stands out as especially ominous: her prediction of the 3 days of darkness. This event, she claimed, would be a period of unimaginable horror, during which the forces of hell would be unleashed upon the earth. The 3 days of darkness is one of the most chilling warnings in her visions, described as a divine response to humanity's sins. Marie-Julie didn't just offer a vague description of darkness. She provided specific details about what to expect and how to survive it, creating both a haunting picture and a guide for those willing to listen. In her vision, Marie-Julie saw the sky turning pitch black, with no light penetrating the thick veil that would cover the world. This darkness would be accompanied by terrifying sights and sounds, thunder so loud it would shake the earth and lightning that would burn without offering illumination. She warned that during this time, anyone who looked outside or attempted to venture into the open air would die instantly from sheer terror or exposure to something beyond human comprehension. Marie-Julie's guidance for surviving the 3 days of darkness was straightforward but stern. She advised that all windows should be covered, preventing any sight of the outside world, and that no one should open their doors or leave their homes, no matter what they might hear or see. She emphasized that only blessed candles, specifically made of pure wax, would provide light during this period. Ordinary lights or candles, she warned, would fail to work. According to Marie-Julie, each household would need only a single blessed candle, which would last for the entirety of the 3 days. During these days, she claimed, demons and the wicked would take on horrifying forms and prowl the streets. Their voices, she said, would try to lure people outside by imitating the voices of loved ones or calling out in desperation. She warned her followers not to fall for these tricks, as the consequences of stepping outside would be fatal. She also advised families to gather around a crucifix or a sacred image and pray continuously, trusting that their faith and obedience to these instructions would protect them. The events of these days would be apocalyptic, according to Marie-Julie. She described the earth as shaking violently, with cities collapsing, rivers flooding, and oceans rising to cover large parts of land. The air would be thick with smoke and ash, making it impossible to breathe if one ventured outside. She claimed that 3/4 of humanity would perish during these days, with only the faithful, those who took her warning seriously, surviving the ordeal. By the end of the 3rd day, the darkness would lift, revealing a world profoundly changed, a world purified, in her words, by divine judgment. Yet even within this terrifying vision, Marie-Julie left a glimmer of hope. She promised that those who heeded the warning, who kept their faith and prayed, would survive and see the dawn of a new era. According to her, the world that would emerge from this tribulation would be a place where people returned to a simpler, more devout way of life, free from the sins and distractions that had led to their near destruction. For Marie-Julie, the 3 days of darkness was not just a message of fear, but also one of redemption. She believed that it was a last chance for humanity to reconcile with God, a call for true repentance that would ultimately save the world from itself. Her prophecy challenges us to consider whether we, as a society, have strayed too far from our spiritual roots, and whether a time of reckoning, like the one she describes, might be drawing near. Despite the ominous warnings in Marie-Julie Jahenny's prophecies, she also envisioned a brighter future, a period of hope and restoration after the trials. For her, the 3 days of darkness and the other calamities were not merely punishments, but a purifying process, a final opportunity for humanity to realign itself with divine truth. Marie-Julie foresaw that after the era of darkness and destruction, a renewed world would emerge, filled with spiritual renewal and unity among people. This period, she said, would be a time of faith restored, of nations and individuals alike returning to the values that had once guided them. One of the key aspects of this restoration would be the emergence of what she called a holy ruler or great monarch. This figure, she prophesied, would be a humble and devout leader sent by God to guide people out of chaos and into a time of peace and justice. Unlike typical rulers, the holy monarch would act not out of ambition or desire for power, but as a servant of God, dedicated to rebuilding society on the foundation of faith. Marie-Julie described this monarch as someone who would rise from obscurity, facing trials of their own before assuming leadership. Through their actions, they would inspire others, restoring a sense of order, dignity, and purpose that had been lost. Alongside this holy ruler would be a figure known as the angelic pope, a pope chosen specifically for this time of restoration, whose dedication and holiness would mirror the virtues of the early church. This pope, Marie-Julie predicted, would work closely with the holy monarch, helping to guide the faithful back to the church's core teachings. Together, they would embody a partnership between spiritual and temporal authority, leading people in a way that emphasized compassion, unity, and moral clarity. Marie-Julie's vision of this renewed era includes a remarkable picture of peace. She foresaw families and communities coming together, the dissolution of divisions that once separated people, and a newfound appreciation for simplicity and humility. This future society, she predicted, would live according to principles of love, mutual respect, and devotion. The barriers that had existed between different religions, she said, would soften, creating an environment where people could worship freely and support one another's faith journeys. Even nature, Marie-Julie suggested, would be transformed in this era. She envisioned a time when the earth itself would heal, its storms calmed, its land restored. This vision of harmony extended beyond humanity to the natural world, where she believed divine intervention would renew the planet's balance and beauty. In this promised time of peace, Marie-Julie saw humanity embarking on a journey of redemption, using the lessons learned from the darkness to forge a stronger and more devout society. Her prophecies hold out hope that, though humanity may face judgment and hardship, the future still holds the possibility of a world healed and united. For those willing to listen, her words serve as a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there is a chance for restoration, and that with faith and perseverance, we can emerge stronger than before. Her prophecy encourages us to hold on to hope, even in the face of unimaginable challenges, and to believe in a future where compassion and unity will guide us forward. Marie-Julie Jahenny's prophecies about global upheaval and divine judgment begin with a special focus on France. In her visions, she emphasized that France, as the first Catholic nation and a historic defender of the faith, would be the origin of spiritual and social trials that would soon spread worldwide. According to Marie-Julie, France's abandonment of its religious roots and its open defiance of divine law would bring about severe consequences, making it a starting point for global punishment. But she didn't limit her visions to France. She also offered insights into the fate of other nations, including America, which she saw playing a pivotal role in the unfolding events. In Marie-Julie's eyes, France had a unique responsibility due to its historic ties to the Catholic faith. She believed that the country's dismissal of its religious heritage, especially through the promotion of secularism and moral relativism, would bring forth punishments meant to awaken the nation. Her prophecies suggest that major French cities like Paris and Marseille would suffer greatly, facing events like fires, earthquakes, and social turmoil. Paris specifically was described as a city set on fire, a powerful image symbolizing both physical destruction and moral decay. Marie-Julie foresaw France as a starting point, with the upheavals eventually spreading to other countries that followed similar paths of secularization and moral decline. She explained that once France experienced its reckoning, other nations would also face divine judgment, suffering similar consequences. She envisioned a chain reaction that would ripple across Europe and then extend to the wider world, reaching as far as America. While her prophecies did not detail America's exact role, they suggest that the United States would not remain unaffected. As a country often viewed as a global leader in cultural and societal trends, America, too, would face repercussions for its own moral and spiritual failings. Marie-Julie's warnings imply that America's embrace of secular values and its increasing detachment from religious principles could make it vulnerable to similar calamities. According to her visions, America's future would be deeply intertwined with the events unfolding in Europe, sharing both the hardships and, potentially, the opportunities for renewal. Marie-Julie's prophecies leave us with an important question. Can nations like America and France avoid the full impact of these predicted judgments? She hinted that, while divine punishment could not be entirely avoided, a return to faith and humility might lessen the severity. Her words serve as a call to individuals and nations alike, urging a shift away from purely secular values and a renewed dedication to spiritual principles. In her view, the trials faced by France and America could be tempered by a collective return to faith, allowing them to navigate the darkness and emerge into a period of restoration. Her insights into France and America's intertwined futures offer a sobering reminder that national identities, are not immune to the consequences of spiritual neglect. But Marie-Julie's message remains hopeful. She believed that if enough people embrace the values of faith, compassion, and humility, even the greatest storms could lead to a brighter future. As we've seen, Marie-Julie Jahenny's prophecies outline a dark yet strangely hopeful vision of the future. Her warnings of societal decline, natural disasters, and divine judgment might sound terrifying, but within them lies a message that invites change. Marie-Julie wasn't simply predicting a bleak fate. She was offering humanity a choice to take her visions as an opportunity for reflection and to reconnect with values of compassion, faith, and humility. For those who believe in her prophecies, her words provide a guide on how to prepare for the challenges ahead. Her advice is simple, yet profound. Stay grounded in faith, foster unity within families and communities, and return to the core values that bring strength and resilience. According to her visions, these acts of devotion and moral clarity can act as a shield, protecting those who embrace them from the darkest trials. Marie-Julie's predictions don't just highlight individual responsibility. They emphasize the collective need for a spiritual reawakening. She warned that nations, particularly France and America, would need to reconcile their actions with their spiritual roots. Her message challenges us to think about our own society and consider whether we, too, are vulnerable to the consequences of neglecting our shared moral principles. As her prophecies unfold, Marie-Julie's legacy continues to offer us a choice. We can ignore the warnings and risk the calamities she predicted, or we can take her visions to heart and begin rebuilding a foundation of faith and humility in our lives. Whether we believe in her prophecies or not, her words hold valuable lessons about resilience, unity, and the power of faith in uncertain times. So as we face the future, consider this. Are Marie-Julie Jahenny's prophecies merely ancient visions, or could they be a call to action for each of us? If you've been moved by her story and want to explore more about the mysteries of the future, make sure to subscribe and stay with us as we continue to explore the hidden truths that shape our world.